Greetings, listeners. Welcome to How the World Should Work, the podcast with a purpose, where we talk about things that actually matter. This is your host speaking, author, journalist, and otherwise aimlessly wandering millennial, Matt Shao. I'll be hosting alongside my good friend Johnny here. As many in my generation can probably relate to, and many who aren't, I spent several years after college trying to navigate the endlessly frustrating world of business to carve out what I was told was a successful life for myself. 6 years in the insurance industry, followed by a year of owning a small business, made me feel like I was on a decent track. Until August the 4th, 2015, when my world was turned upside down. That was the day I lost my mother and best friend, and suddenly every priority of mine completely shifted. I began to look at life from a totally different angle, and as a result, decided to drop everything and pursue writing. A dream my mother had pushed me towards my entire life, but one I was always too scared to chase. Fast forward 2 years, and I'm now a published author, a columnist at my local newspaper, an ever-growing blogger, and now we have a podcast. Which brings me to the point at hand. Here you'll be listening to topics pulled from various themes and motifs from my main writing project, the Continuity Series. Although the primary purpose, as with any work of fiction, is to entertain, it also serves as a platform to express many of the thoughts and feelings we all seem to have with this crazy world we're living in. From deeper issues like social equality to lighter things such as modern dating, we'll be covering a wide array of things that we all seem to think about but don't seem to talk about very frequently. So with all that said, allow me to introduce our co-host, Mr. Gentleman Johnny Wiggins.
My name is Jonathan Wiggins. I've decided to join this project because I truly believe in what it stands for. Our goal here isn't to use this as a soapbox, so all you can just hear us talk. Instead, we hope that by talking about these issues, we can help create a better awareness of the things that affect our lives. By talking about these issues that we otherwise tend to ignore, I think we'll get a much better understanding of them, which can help us apply this newfound understanding to our lives in a meaningful way.
Episode 2, we are going to talk about dating, and specifically modern dating. So we have the lovely Allie Connor here with us. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And we, so the quote that we picked, so there's two quotes that I want to use here. The first one, I think everyone's probably heard this. It's by Marilyn Monroe. I'm selfish, impatient, and a little insecure. I make mistakes, I'm out of control, and at times hard to handle. But if you can't handle me at my worst, then you sure as hell don't deserve me at my best. I think that's a really, really good quote, because most people judge far too often. The other one was actually a Dr. Seuss quote, one of my biggest inspirations, actually.
There you go.
You know you're in love when you can't fall asleep because reality is finally better than your dreams. How sentimental. I really like that quote.
Well said.
The way dating applies to the book, and I struggled for the longest time trying to figure out if I wanted to insert some sort of love dynamic into it, because I feel like it's almost obligatory. But ultimately I decided to, because I feel like it probably appeals to, I hate to say it, the female demographic more so, you know. But, so Carson, the main character, and Jennifer, the co-protagonist, have this quick love story. So in the story, I don't want to spoil anything, but something happens that basically tells the world that the world's going to end pretty soon. So feelings are elevated and escalated, so they fall pretty hard for each other pretty quickly. And that's the reason I think they fell for each other so quickly, was because they don't have any time left. So that's basically how it applies to the book. But this is a really broad topic, so I want to start out by asking, Johnny, I'll ask you first. How many relationships have you had?
I say 5.
5 relationships, okay.
I'd say about 5, yeah.
How many people have you, quote, dated? And you take that wherever you want. Interpret the term however you want.
I'd probably say...
Feel free to get your Chictionary out and take a look at the names.
What?
If
All
you
right.
need to.
A Chictionary?
I do not have a Chictionary.
Oh my gosh.
Don't lie.
I'd say probably about 10 to 15.
10 to 15 people you've dated. Okay. I'd say that's pretty standard.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
For a 23-year-old, actually, maybe
That's
not.
pretty high
That's,
for a
that's kind of high,
23-year-old.
yeah. Nicely
But that's
done.
okay. We don't judge.
Yeah, we're not. That's
I
you know.
explore my options.
What you are quite an
Clearly.
explorer. Allie, what about you? How many relationships have you had?
Facebook official, 1.
Wow.
Dated 5 or 6.
5 or 6 you've dated.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would say, for me, I've had 4 relationships and dated probably 12 to 15.
Okay.
You know, but
Not too bad.
that leads into my next question. So Johnny, I'll ask you
Here we
first.
go.
From meeting them first to relationship, what are the steps to you? How does it evolve from that to the relationship? The progression, if you will.
I think first comes, getting to know each other, meeting each other, and finding that you have something in common. You actually want to spend time with this person. Then it goes to the talking stage, and that's where you both realize that you actually like each other, and you're sort of committed, but nothing official. Then from there, you go into the DTR moment.
DTR.
DTR is, I'll let Allie here explain what that is.
Allie enlightened us on the term.
I
This is
did.
would
They,
you like to
never, they
describe
didn't
it?
know what DTR was. So, DTR, for those of you who don't know, and the majority of you who do know, is define the relationship. And I think there comes to a point where you're both, wondering, okay, are we at that point where we're ready to be exclusive, or are we wanting to, there's
As
that
Johnny
moment.
puts it, explore.
Yeah, I mean, are we still running around, or is it just
Running
the two of
around.
us?
Okay. Yeah.
But-
So well put. So I think the only DT most guys are concerned with are very different. So DTR, I like that term. I think it's relevant. So you're saying talking, you said, to
That's when the DTR comes into play, and then from that you establish a relationship.
okay.
If you're wanting to move forward, if not, then
How long, Johnny, does it take one typically to get to the DTR moment? In your experience?
in my experience, let's see, I'd probably say a month
a month.
to get to that point where, well, it's different for different people and different relationships that you get into, but for me, I'd say on average it's about a month, that 1 month part, time period where they start putting a label on things.
Are you normally the one that does that, or is it the girl?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's...
So it's the girl, based upon your reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever instigated that conversation?
Once.
One time. So it must have been somebody you really liked.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, Allie, same question. Just what is your start to finish progression, and how long does it take to DTR?
It's similar. So obviously you start talking and make sure that there's even a connection. For me, I don't think there's necessarily a timeline. I mean, it's just
typically on average for you.
on average. So talking, maybe DTR within, I'd say 3 months.
3
for me.
months?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
not. I don't know. I'm more laid back. So I don't feel the need. I think that you just have to go out and do fun things and make sure you even get along. And I don't want to date someone I don't know.
Right.
And how can you know somebody in a month? I don't know. Unless you knew them beforehand, which is totally different then. But I'd say 2 to 3 months. Sometimes it takes longer depending on the progression of it.
And is it usually you that has to start that conversation?
No,
Really?
not really.
Wow.
I'd say maybe half the time.
Okay. That surprises me.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because
A
typically,
lot of my female counterparts are very as we've discussed, women are on a time clock. So
Yeah.
we're very okay, I don't want to waste my time. If he's not great, I'm going to move on. So they want to either stay or get out. And for me, I'm just kind of, it's more just fun. Like,
Right.
I'm not, when it happens, it happens. And until then, I'm just going to have fun, and
You should write a
overanalyze.
book for women to read so they can actually emulate that exact response, because I'm saying that jokingly, but I'm actually kind of serious. But I
to
think,
chill out.
yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
You know, because actually I'm going to skip a couple points here, and that reminds me. So, the battle of the sexes, we'll call it. I mean, I think men and women have markedly different approaches on average to dating, and you know what they're thinking when it comes to a relationship. Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think? I think what you just said is pretty typical. I think men in general are much more aren't nearly as concerned about the long-term dynamic and like what actually is going on, whereas the women, like you said, has that clock ticking type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, I get it. You know, for us, time is not in our favor. So and there's a lot of pressure to be a single female, especially in her late 20s, early 30s. And I'm going through that now as a 29-year-old. You know, a lot of people are like, "Oh, are you dating?" It's kind of like, it's almost a failure to be single.
like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah,
right?
and I don't think that, I think that's, but for a guy, you know, if he's 29 or even 32, it's no big deal. Nobody's questioning him.
Right.
But for a woman, it's kind of like you haven't moved up to the next successful stage of life until you get married and have kids, and like there's still that traditional viewpoint. And I think when people, especially women, are waiting longer to get married, which is fine. I think you should do it when you're ready. I don't think that not everybody has the same story. And somebody who wants to get married at 23 is not my life. I couldn't be married at 23. And even, you know, I mean, even now, like, I couldn't get married tomorrow. But I think there's so much pressure on women to get married, and
It's not fair.
It's
I mean,
not.
It's really, women get the short end of the stick when
They
it comes
do.
to a lot of things. When it comes to the dating arena,
They
you know?
do, and it's kind of like, you know, and I have a lot
And
of
it's
girlfriends.
frustrating. I imagine for
It is. I have a lot of girlfriends that, you know, would rather date somebody than nobody.
Yeah,
you know?
and that's what you see a lot of miserable relationships.
Exactly.
Because of that very
And
reason.
I'm, you know, I'm cool with being by myself on a Friday night. I'll go do something social later in the weekend, but
yeah.
you know, I don't feel like, oh, what's wrong? It's like, hey, I love my alone time. You know,
Cats.
I'm with my cats. My boys are amazing. But I think women do have a pressure that guys don't face, at least until later in life.
Do you think that'll change? Because I think that's a really, I don't want to call it antiquated, but it's a really traditional, old school point of view. Because women aren't typically, like, they didn't used to have that career. Like, right now, I think there's been a big push, obviously, and it's come a long way. It's still not where it needs to be, but the support for a single woman to have her own career and,
Right.
like, you know, have that status in society. So do you think that that might contribute to that opinion kind of changing?
I think it does get delayed. I don't think people, you know, especially, I didn't get it as much at 24 and 25 as, you know, if my mom was that age, it would have been like, what in the world?
Yeah.
Or my grandmother even. So it is, the age is getting delayed, which I think is good. But I also think that women are always on that time clock. So we can never, you know,
Unless you change your biology somehow, that will never change.
right. And it just because that there is that time clock that women do have, that, you know, if you're going to have kids, you have to do it at a certain point.
Yeah. Do you know, what is that? Like, I don't know much about that, because I know the older, there's a point where, like, if you wait till, you know, too long, there's higher odds of,
Yeah, there's
like,
higher risk.
autism.
Yeah,
like,
there's
what,
higher risk.
What is that kind of point, like 35 or something?
Well, so I think with the advancements of technology, I think that that's helped. My mom had me when she was 36, 37, and I was the last one of 4. But my aunt also had one of her boys, I think at 42, 43. So I wouldn't have them past that age,
Okay.
just because there are just a lot of
The risks.
complications,
Yeah.
you know, and your body is just not. I don't think it's.
That's a shame, too, to have to, you know,
Yeah.
reserve yourself, or, like, even if, like, because I know a lot of women that age have never had children that would love to.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and it is sad
Absolutely.
that that's kind of a risk.
Yeah, and now there's a lot of women who, you know, aren't waiting to find somebody. They're just having kids. You know,
there's a lot of people having kids for the wrong reasons. Actually.
well, absolutely,
You know,
and you know, I think at the end of the day, girls are so pressured that they just find somebody,
right?
Whether they're happy or not,
And it gives men
whether he treats them well or not, whether they are just roommates, they would rather have that lifestyle than be independent.
That's sad.
Yeah, I mean, single versus settling, right? And for me, I would rather.
That's a good way to put it.
I would rather be single than settle. And I think a lot of my friends, I even watch them, and I'm like, you're signing up for the next 60 years of your life. Like, what is the rush?
I think it's like a lot of it's psychological, like that need to be validated and loved.
And accepted.
Yeah, exactly. You know, which is sad because it gives guys, you know, an easy outlet to treat them like crap.
Right.
Because it's like, you know, so.
Because they'll lower their standards so that they can feel in their mind whatever they're looking for.
Right, and that I think that sucks. You know, like I said, women have it hard. So Johnny, right.
Johnny's like, well, sucks for you.
It's like
that sucks.
Yeah,
sorry.
Tough luck, ladies. Life is good over here.
I mean, think about it. Your body doesn't change when you know.
No, you're right. I mean, everything.
I mean,
about
literally,
it
like
is
we get
unfair.
pregnant, our whole body changes.
Yeah,
we don't go back to the way it was.
You guys get screwed. No pun intended about all of that.
Literally, I mean, everything is kind of stacked against us.
You have your periods. You face the pain of childbirth.
Literally every month.
It's like us dudes are over here just chilling, playing cards.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Yes. At least you know, a lot of guys understand.
They don't want to talk about it, and they don't want to acknowledge it
because it's not fair. It's like, that sucks for y'all.
Yeah.
But
it's terrible.
You know, so Johnny, tell me, when it comes to a girl or a guy, because we all know you're. No, I'm just kidding. When it comes to a girl, what traits or characteristics or any components of them do you look for? What do you like in another girl? And be honest.
Honestly, I think for the most part, I'm looking for a nice personality that treats others fair, and
is that truthfully the first thing that comes to mind?
Okay, so if you look at the first thing that comes to mind, of course we're going to be looking based on looks, and
the fundamental, you know, the foundation of all attraction.
There it is.
Right. We're animals.
And so, obviously, if you can see yourself with that person, looks-wise, whatever, and you are attracted to them, then you move forward getting to know them. Based off that, I'm looking for a nice personality, a nice person that treats others well, and let's say, I don't know, someone that shares, you know, some of the common interests,
right?
You know, we may have, and
Well, let me take it one step further. Do you have any absolute musts in another person that they have, or on the contrary, any deal breakers? Anything that absolute, like a lot of people I know won't date somebody if they smoke, for example. Any of those? Anything that you require in somebody, and anything that you require they don't have? I just you don't want a can or you want a genuine answer here, you know?
Yeah, it can't be rehearsed.
Yeah.
Why not? Let's I'd say deal breaker. I mean, obviously. Oh hell, I don't know. Let's see.
That's Johnny Wood, Gentleman Johnny.
Frank Underwood.
We're gonna have to edit out a lot of the silence here, you know.
No, I think it's good. He's really pondering this moment.
It's really illustrating the confusion.
He's really saying, do I really have anything that I...
This is good, though. This is good because a lot of people don't think about these things.
Yeah.
And if you can identify...
Until you're 3 months in, and then you're like, oh, wait, I don't like that.
If you can identify these things, it can help you skip the riffraff and find people that you actually connect with.
The riffraff.
Whatever you want to call it. The incompatible individuals, if you will.
Yeah, well, I guess we don't really think about these things before you would meet somebody, but
I think you kind of know.
Funny,
I think it's
you like people are like, oh yeah, well of course I want him to be nice and I want him to be, you know, but you don't really like sit down and, you know, write items down. You know, you don't have a list. So it's a good question.
Yeah, it's good to think about. You know, I think that you learn a lot about yourself when you have these kinds of conversations. You know. Well, while we let Johnny figure it out, if he ends up figuring it out, Allie, what do you? Yeah, you need a pen. Allie, what about you?
Have you answered any of these questions?
I answered the progression one. Well, you know, I'll get to it then. I'll get to it. I'll go last.
Okay.
I'll go last.
Okay, so repeat the question. Now that Johnny's gonna write out his answers.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a
right.
test.
So first I asked.
What do I like in a woman?
What? Yeah, seriously. What characteristics or traits or whatever do you like in a person? And I'll add maybe some that you don't like, and then what do you require, if anything, and what is an absolute deal breaker?
Okay, so what do I like is the first question.
Yeah.
Obviously they have to be attractive to me. They have to be funny. They have to make me laugh. Have a sense of humor. Is that a good one?
That's a good one.
All right.
That's sense of humor is good.
All right. They have to be
Write
intelligent.
that down, Johnny.
I got it.
Intelligent. They can't be a rock. They have to be, we have to have engaging conversations. I think somebody who challenges you, but that also lets you challenge them. You're constantly wanting to grow the other person, and it's not just staying stagnant. I want someone who motivates me and wants me to be the best person that I can reach. I think that I want someone to see potential in me. I don't want them to just be like, yeah, whatever, you do you, if you're happy and whatever, just do that. I want someone to challenge me.
Yeah.
Somebody who likes to go out and do new things, and someone who loves to travel.
Travel. Okay.
Yeah. Obviously has to have good taste in music, which obviously varies from person to person. But that's, going back to like just having fun. Like you want to make sure that you can go out and do different things, and you'll have fun together no matter what you do.
Yeah. Whether
it's going to a movie or going to a concert or going to a sports game or whatever, you want to be able to have fun.
So these are all things you like. Is there anything that you require?
Well, they absolutely, for me, I can't date a smoker at all.
Okay.
That's a deal breaker. For me, and I know a lot of people I'm different in this regard, but to me, they have to have faith.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you want somebody who's going to be respectful and faithful. What are you smiling about over there?
When you say
see
faith,
anything.
obviously you mean do you just mean like a general relationship with God or believing that He exists? Anything that you could elaborate on there?
I mean, I want them, I want us to have the same faith system, because at the end of the day, I want to raise my kids a certain way with certain beliefs. Right. And so and I've seen marriages, where one is one way and one's the other, and then that's how they start.
So they
get into it because now they didn't think about that going in. Unless it's not a priority.
Is that a requirement because of the kids? Because it sounds to me like that's the underlying.
No. I mean, there's a lot of different things. I would want somebody who, I think when they challenge me and I challenge them, we're doing it for the same reason instead of just saying, oh, I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. This kind of goes back to the whole purpose.
Mm-hmm. So does that kind of segues into a deal breaker? Because it sounds to me like if they don't have that, then
or at least wanting to get there. You know what I'm saying? I don't think I couldn't date somebody who's literally I couldn't care less about it.
Okay.
I want somebody who actually sees value in figuring it out.
Okay. That's a much clearer answer, I think.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people struggle with it, but it's usually if you struggle with it, it's because you care.
Right, so exactly. And I couldn't date somebody who didn't care.
Yeah.
And I get
and that applies to everything, I think, not just religion even.
Right. I mean, even just
your career, your
right.
Exactly.
I mean, somebody who wants to learn and grow.
So basically, you don't want a loser, right?
Right.
Well, no scrubs. What did you say?
So Johnny, before I go, how are you doing on the bullet point list there?
I got my list here.
Have you gotten anything now?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. Okay. So things. It'd be nice for you to have.
What two things did you write down?
Yeah.
Okay. First is off a sense of humor. I make jokes all day. Just that's just who I am. Humor is a big part of my life. So if she can't take a joke and there's no you can't incorporate that in a common conversation, then I don't see us getting along too well. Intelligence, of course, You got to have something up there. The ability to work as a team.
Okay.
I want to work off you and you work off me, and we move forward together. And
look at this.
Look
Look at this box opening up right
yeah.
here.
Okay. Yeah, no ambition or drive. If that's the case, then that's the deal breaker for me. You've got to have something. You got to
want to be better.
Yeah, you got to want to better yourself and wanting to move forward.
So almost like independent, the ability to be independent and not solely, exclusively depend on you for holding their hand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to babysit.
Yeah, I think that's a big one.
I want to babysit.
Yeah, I mean, my answers are but before. What about deal breakers requirements? Anything? Are you referring to your your outline?
No humor and then the no.
Okay, so if they don't have a sense of humor, it's a deal breaker. And
I mean, what are deal breakers for Matt?
Well, I'll start by saying the things that I do like. Obviously, the first thing one notices, and this is just me being brutally honest, is looks. You know,
I think that's pretty
but I think
for
that's
everybody, though.
Because otherwise we'd just be friends.
Right.
You know?
I mean, that's putting that aside.
Right.
That's true.
I mean, really, like, I don't think anybody's like, well, I'm not really attracted to her at all, but she has a great, face for radio.
Yeah.
I mean,
a great face for radio.
I don't think people go into relationships not being attracted.
Yeah, that's obviously the core,
a
fundamental characteristic that we're. To me, have you heard this term that's been going around, sapiosexual? It's kind of lame, to be honest, but it's for somebody. I'm not saying this is me, but it's a term that means you're not attracted to somebody. You're attracted to intellect and intelligence. That's it. It's like, or not necessarily it, but that's what you're like. Instead of looks being your basis of attraction, it's intelligence or emotion. You know, it's that
emotional connection,
the psychological connection more so than the physical connection. Personally, I think that's well, I don't want to say it's BS because I don't want to undermine other people's opinions, but that kind of is what, along the lines of what I think. I think there has to be. I can be physically attracted to somebody, but if I'm not intellectually or emotionally attracted to them, it doesn't do anything for me. Like I'll think so much, but I just can't be attracted.
Well, yeah, I mean, you
to
can
them.
be physically attracted to a lot of people, but you would never.
I don't. Well, I mean, I think with a lot of people, most people would say most guys, but I think girls are like this too. That there's plenty of that shallow, physical. Like for me, the whole like one night stand thing. If I don't know you, like I just don't really care. I'm not saying I haven't hooked up with people that I didn't really know all that well, but. That was also, I mean, in my opinion of this has changed throughout, the years. So now, I don't do that. Like now, it's not something that I even it's not even in the back of my head to go,
Yeah.
But as far as like deal breakers and requirements, I don't think that I could say I have a deal breaker because I try to remain as open as I possibly can.
So there's nothing at all.
I think that if somebody is inexplicably compatible with me, they could have any sort of characteristic that, like, I will never say, if they do this or do not do this, I will not date you. I will never say that because I don't think that that's something, I don't want to close myself off to what could be a good opportunity had I been more open-minded. You know what I mean? So, and that kind of goes into the requirements because obviously intelligence is something that my biggest requirement, I think, if I were to put a term to it, is depth. Depth to me is something where is you think about things and things like you're not just that kind of, how we all have those facades and like surface type encounters. I feel like a lot of times like there's not much more to somebody that but so like this kind of conversation, for example, it's these kinds of things and the ability to think deeply about important things, whether it's religion for you or whether it's comedy or technology for you, those are all things that define that add to your depth. So that's really what I would say is my answer to those questions. So we were talking about this a minute ago, but why do you think men and women? No, I'm not going to say. We'll cut that part out. We kind of already. So the next thing I want to ask is, what are your thoughts, Allie? I'll start with you this time on workplace relationships. Appropriate, inappropriate, awkward, not awkward, setting up for disaster. What do you think? All of the above.
Yeah, I mean, you're both adults, so at the end of the day, like, I don't think it's necessarily inappropriate, but I also think that you're walking into fire if something goes wrong, because now you both have to be in this place together, and, maybe some people, they really don't have to interact, which is fine, but if you do have to interact on a day-to-day basis, you can't bring your personal life into that.
Yeah.
And so...
But that's... look, imagine how hard that is, though. It's like, you know how they say, don't dip the pen in company ink?
Right.
You know?
Don't mix business with pleasure.
Yeah.
Like, I get why people say that.
If it's like Mark from finance and like Janine from HR or something where you never
right.
see
Like,
each
if
other.
you really never have to interact, you never see each other, you may get an email every now and then, that's one thing.
The Christmas party. Or...
Right. But for people that you really have to interact with on a day-to-day basis, or they see you all the time or whatever, yeah, it's murky waters. But I get why people do it, because you're spending 8 hours a day with these people.
Yeah.
And so you become close with the people you spend a lot of time with, naturally, or don't get close with.
I feel like it could go one of two ways. It could be really awesome because they're around each other all the time, or absolutely disastrous because they're around each other all the time.
Exactly. And then, because like on your free time, do you spend more time with them? Because
right,
at that
right.
point, you're together all the time.
Right.
Yeah, literally
all the time. And if you have a disagreement and you have to carry that into work, how do you separate the two? How do you say, well, I'm really mad at you, but we have to, I'm going to be nice to you at work? I mean, that's just, I think that's a nice theory, but how do you, maybe some people can, but how do you separate those two and compartmentalize? I'm mad at you right now, but I'm going to put on a happy face and everybody's going to think that we are hunky-dory. I just...
Have you ever done that? Have you ever dated somebody from work, though? Just out of curiosity.
Yes.
Okay. And how did it end up? You're single now, obviously, so...
Not well.
Yeah.
Yeah, not well.
Was it somebody that you, pass in, in the coffee room every day, or somebody you just saw occasionally at work?
I saw him pretty often.
How was it awkward?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Very awkward.
Was it a malicious breakup, or was it amicable, or?
It was not the best moment. It was not great.
I guess it wouldn't be awkward if it was amicable.
Yeah. But I do know people that have dated at work, and they're like, yeah, it's just, it just kind of fizzled, which is fine. But, because then you start seeing with other people at work, and...
Kind of pisses you off.
Right.
Like,
Right. So there's that moment where you're just like, I don't know. I get why people do it, because you do spend so much time with them, and it's just a natural, you can't help it. It's just a natural thing. Yeah,
you interact with who you're around. Right. That's life.
But...
It's just a high risk.
It is.
Johnny, what about you, Johnny? What about you? Have you dated somebody you worked with?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
It really didn't go that bad because we got along great and we worked well together. But we were able to be in a relationship and at the same time work together and make it a I don't know how I'm saying this. Let's see.
What is that?
Yeah, it can either go one of two ways. It can go good or it can go bad. I'd like to say my relationship went well. We worked together for about a year, and we did end up splitting up towards the end of that year. So that made things a lot more awkward. That was a little.
Like, did you have
difficult.
to see her,
Yeah.
like, throughout the day, or was it just
Yeah.
like, okay?
Yeah, working closely with that person, and so, like I said, when we were together, it went fine. Everything worked out. We left our problems at the door. We came in, we did our job, but afterwards, yes, it does make things a little awkward, and
gritting your teeth and
and
putting gum under a car door handle. And...
So tell me why you guys decided to split. Like, did it have really anything to do with work at all, or was it
No.
You didn't put a cover on your TPS report?
That's what
all 8 of them?
No, it was more of, it didn't really have anything to do with work, but it was one of those relationships where it kind of just fizzled out.
Yeah.
I guess the spark was gone, and we realized we weren't that
Compatible.
after we grew up, I guess.
I've only dated one girl from work, and I don't think that was ever a problem. You know, like afterwards, it was a kind of a rough breakup, but I mean, I think we got over it. You know, eventually, and it was never like I never felt awkward or anything like that. You know, so but yeah, I think it's a really delicate situation, and you need to approach it, you know, carefully.
Right, because you can't just break up from your, you know.
Right, and it affects. I mean, that can affect work.
Absolutely.
It can affect your coworkers.
Like, it's a way bigger.
You know, it's like dating within the same circle of friends.
Yes.
Like those are the most like nuclear breakups because it always drives a wedge in between the group.
Yes,
it's like team Allie, team Jonathan. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just something, you know, I don't want to say like put too much thought into it because I think in life things should happen as they happen, but that's definitely something to consider. We're going to talk about the modern dating here in a minute with the sites and the apps and like how things have changed what they used to, you know. But first, let's talk about cheating and honesty. What in context, I guess, to help guide the conversation. What have you ever been cheated on? I'm not going to ask if you've ever cheated on anybody because nobody would want to admit that on air. But have you been cheated on, and is that something I think that you could ever forgive, or is that a deal breaker?
You know, honestly, I don't believe I've ever been cheated on that I know of, but yeah, I think that'd be a deal breaker.
Okay.
It's not something because right there you're breaking the trust, and if you don't have trust, what do you have?
Very true.
So
that's probably the number one characteristic. Of rewinding a bit there, that you know, trust and honesty, I think, is probably the most important component of a relationship. Allie, what about you?
Same.
Samesies.
Yeah, I don't. For me, it would be a deal breaker because if I'm constantly questioning them, it's giving me anxiety, and it's just not healthy.
Yeah.
Do you think, okay, let me build on that. Do you think if somebody breaks your trust, is there a possibility that they could earn it back? Or are you always going to have that doubt?
I think I'd always have that doubt.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, yeah, of course I'd want to try and give them that option to earn it back, but it shouldn't have happened in the first place. You know, if it really was... If they're saying all these great things like, oh, I messed up, well, yeah, but you should have thought of that before.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I guess for me it's kind of like, I don't know. I wish I could say, oh yeah, you know, I know myself, and I know that I would always hold that resentment.
Yeah.
And it would creep back up, you know, every time that they were out with their friends or doing that there'd be that small part of me that's like, is this happening again?
Yeah.
You know? And I wouldn't.
It's like the Garth Brooks song, "The Thunder Rolls." You ever heard the lyrics to that?
Of course you say that. We're in Nashville.
Yeah. Well, no, but seriously, like the lyrics to that, it's like the woman is, you know, standing up all night, looking out the window, waiting for her husband to come home. He gets home smelling like somebody else's perfume, and she's like,
right.
So.
Right.
But I don't remember, to be honest, if I've been cheated on. I probably have. I mean, I just don't. But for me, like,
given my exes,
I mean, I mean,
I probably have.
But I look at it the same way I look at the deal breaker thing. It's like, I get that and cheating happens so often. Like, it's so much more prevalent than we want to admit. So if somebody did cheat on me, it would depend on the context of the cheating, I think, first, and then how like, if somebody came to me, a girlfriend came to me and was like, volunteered the information on her own, I would respect that, like, because that is not an easy thing. And if I could tell she was truly remorseful about it, like, I let this happen. It was in this situation, and the temptation. Because I look at it, people are always going to be attracted. I don't care what anybody ever
true.
says.
Yeah.
People will always be attracted to other people. That's biology, ladies, if your boyfriend says they're not physically attracted to other girls, they're lying. I'm sorry.
It's true.
I'm just being honest.
That is true.
But so I mean, I get that. I understand how that is always going to occur. So, and it does require self-control, and I know that people aren't perfect and that they're going to lose that every now and then. So, I think it would depend on the situation. It's something I could forgive. It's not something that, again, I try to be as open as I can when it comes to people and acknowledging that nobody is perfect. So, traditional dating as opposed to dating today, modern dating. My view of it is things used to happen much more organically, like your relationships and everything was forged out of your direct interaction with other people. Now technology's enabled us to cherry pick these people from society and swipe right, hopefully match with them, whatever. What do you think? Do you think this whole modern dating thing has contributed positively to the whole dating realm, or do you think it's been a negative thing?
I think a little bit of both.
Okay.
Because these algorithms that are put in these apps like Tinder and Bumble, they're made they pose people that are a good match for you.
Well, that's not Tinder or Bumble, right? That's the ones like Match, where you have to fill out.
Right, like
they match you. Yeah. Tinder and Bumble's more like
Tinder and Bumble
hot or not kind of thing.
They use attraction.
They do zip code. That's all they do.
Yeah, geographically they'll match you, but
the first ones, the first couple
proximity, it's like
so
We keep cutting them off.
okay. I know. I'm sorry, Johnny. So yeah, you're right though. So matching all that, the algorithms go on. They match you with people you're compatible with, right?
Yeah.
yes, you can use the technology nowadays times to match with people that are more like you. Supposedly, on paper, they're more like you, and they share the same thoughts and ideas and interests. But look at it another way. Now we have these awkward first dates that we have to go on. We've never met these people before. We have no idea who they are and what they're like really in real life.
Happened last night.
We saw a successful one of these last night.
Yeah.
Define successful.
Well, one can only assume.
Depends on what your definition
They got
is.
along well and connected on a visceral level.
Yeah.
We'll put it that way.
Okay.
I don't know if the success that you're referring to occurred or not, but
Oh, boy.
from it showed all the familiar
We
symptoms.
got to see it firsthand of, is that her?
Yeah.
Is that her?
It was so funny.
Oh,
She pokes her
okay.
head over the stairwell. We're like, "Oh, is that her?" He's like, "Yeah,
I
think
was
so."
not looking because I was just watching all the
I
guys'
was.
faces.
And-
I was just watching everybody's faces. And it was just like this moment of, oh, this is not what I signed up for. Like,
Yeah,
it was
right.
just so.
Well, at
oh,
least
it
it
was
went
so
well.
funny.
At least it went, like I
Yeah.
said, it showed all the familiar symptoms of a successful encounter. So, yeah, Allie, what do you think? What do you think about dating, the whole apps and modern?
Yeah, I mean, I think
approach?
that there's positives and negatives to it, just like social media. I mean, you could say, yeah, social media lets me stay in contact with people I care about, but then you also, there's so many negatives of it.
Such as?
Well, I think you can, I think that people, you can't compare your life to what you see of other people's lives on social media.
Right.
It's a highlight reel. That's
Mhm.
what social media is. And, comparison is the thief of joy. I think that when you start,
Comparison is the thief of joy.
it is.
Who said that? I like that.
I actually
never
heard it.
Have you ever heard that?
Nope.
I saw it on a quote somewhere, but I also heard it in church.
Okay.
So it was just one of those, we talked about social media and the impact of it and how, when you're constantly seeing so-and-so and all these great pictures, you're like, oh, I don't, but you don't see what's behind the camera.
Right.
You only see
The grass is
you
always
only see
greener
a
kind of
happy
thing.
snapshot, and I think people do that. I think people ultimately they start comparing their lives, and they shouldn't.
Because they end up finding out that it actually sucks.
I mean, we're human. We're all
Right.
humans,
Yeah.
and I don't, so we all have problems, and I think we all struggle with different things, and so But for dating, I think that there is a great component to it because there's a lot of great people within the city you're in.
Right.
But if you don't work with them, you don't have a friend that knows them, you don't run in the same circle, and there's no way for you to physically meet, you'll never meet them. And so these social media dating apps have opened those doors to where you can meet somebody who you may never run into but would be a great match.
Right. I agree with that. I think that's probably the biggest positive of that is the exposure you get to people you would otherwise never know.
Right.
And that opens up those doors. I think probably the biggest negative when it comes to it is how it's enabled people to be so manipulative. They can it's almost now like it's the quickest mechanism nowadays for like people wanting to hook up with people, which is fine. I'm not judging. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Of course, hooking up with people is a fun thing to do, but when it's approached like maliciously, like when a guy or a girl is saying, I'm looking for this, and they know they're not looking for it. You know what I mean?
They're just saying all the right things.
Right. And I think dating apps have made. And that's always happened. That's happened since the dawn of time. But dating apps have made that such a. They've basically created that exponentially. It's now. It happens a lot.
Well, and like you said, you can alter your image. And you can create this persona of yourself that may or may not be realistic.
And that's got to be hard. Again, the whole fairness thing. I can't imagine how frustrated women probably get when you see a profile or something. It's like, oh my God, this guy's perfect, and then you meet him, and he ends up being a dick.
Right, and that's happened to me. So.
Next question, last question before we get into I'm going to talk about a couple Facebook responses we got here. But briefly describe your worst date.
Briefly?
And I know the backstory here, so we have to ask Allie this because it's so entertaining.
Oh my gosh.
Just tell us the highlights of like the parts, because when you told me, I was like, oh my god, like it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. It's like, how much deeper can this guy dig this hole?
The whole night was just so bad.
How did you meet?
We met on a dating website.
Okay.
And he seemed fine. So bad. So
don't hold back.
Oh God, so bad. We talked on the phone at first the night before, and it was fine. There were a few things that were just a little off to me, but I'm thinking, okay, nerves, whatever, fine. So we were gonna meet the next day, and he wanted to take me to a really fancy restaurant, a very nice steak restaurant. He wanted to take me to the Palm, which is right next door to Bridgestone, and I have not been, but it's, from what I've heard, a wonderful...
This is Nashville, by the way.
This is Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And so we talked for a little bit, and then he was going to take me to this restaurant, but that was at like 8:30. Well, he wanted to meet me at like 3. And I am more for meeting somebody for a drink, or you need to make sure you even like them.
That's a big time commitment for somebody
that you've never met, right? And so that was a red flag to me that he wanted to spend like 6 straight hours at least.
Was this like a weekend day? I forget.
Yeah, it was a Saturday night.
Alright, Saturday. Okay.
So we I pushed him till like 5 o'clock, and he's like, oh, I made a reservation at Pinewood Social, which is like a really cool, they had like have bowling, and they have like all this outdoor stuff and this huge bar and all these really cool lounge chairs. So I was like, okay, well, let's do that. Maybe thinking, okay, maybe I can get him out of the steakhouse idea. So I meet him there, and he walks in, and I'm just, the image was not the reality.
Yeah, the pic wasn't really...
Yeah, so, but I'm like, what, it's fine. I'm just gonna, whatever. So, we just, the thing that first off really made me uncomfortable was the fact that and I wasn't wearing anything revealing. I was just wearing, cute pants, and then a top, and then, I don't know, some type of sandal or
15
something.
Minutes, okay. 15.
And so we went bowling, and at one point he smacked my butt, which that's not okay.
Bold move.
Bold move.
Right. Fortune favors the bold, right?
Not this.
He had
Not
about
this one,
4
yeah.
or 5 gin and tonics, just throwing them back and telling me that he's a CPA.
Loose.
Johnny can relate to that. Yeah, the vodka Red Bull is in there. He's
Which,
like, okay.
come to find out,
Man after my
though,
own heart there.
was told by a very good friend of mine that if a guy drinks gin, to run as quickly as possible.
It tastes like a melted Christmas tree. I hate gin.
Yeah, it does.
So, I didn't know that before. Now I know.
I've never
So-
heard that either.
Yeah. So, did that, and then we're sitting there talking, and he tells the waiter, he gives me his business card at one point.
Yeah, that's a...
Literally
Who
hands
does
me,
that? Even-
literally hands me his business card, and I'm like,
especially in the middle of a date.
okay, that's okay. So he's CPA, CPA, and I'm like, that's cool, whatever.
Did he say why he gave it to you?
I don't know if he didn't think that I believed him.
Was he like tax season or something? Was he trying to solicit his services?
I don't know.
How weird.
He was trying to solicit a lot of things.
I know, right?
And so we're sitting there talking, and one of my big things is you don't treat anyone with disrespect.
Yeah.
And there was a moment when the waiter came over and said, "Hey guys, just want to let you know that you guys are paying for the bolt for the the lane by the hour, not by the game, so you can keep playing as long as you want." Just trying to be nice.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at the waiter and was just very like, "Bro, I know. Like, I've been here. I can afford this place." And
Yeah.
I, in that moment, was just so turned off. Like, that is so disrespectful. You just don't treat. And I've been, I worked at a front desk at a hotel, and people just treat you terribly.
Yeah.
They think lesser.
Anybody who's waited tables or served,
Yeah, I mean,
done
any
anything
type of that customer
knows.
service position, people don't realize how much.
It's sad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so to me, I just treat everyone that I can with respect, and nobody's perfect,
As you
but
should.
but in that moment, I was just instantly done. So the waiter kind of gives me a look, and I just tell him, oh, really appreciate that, thank you for telling us, whatever. So we go outside, and I ask him about his family. I'm telling him about my siblings, and he has his, I asked him about his, and I said, do you have any brothers? Tell me about your brother. And he goes, do you really want to go into that right now?
Whoa!
And I was like,
How dare you?
okay, well, this is really awkward. And then as I was talking,
As if you're supposed to know. There's
right, and he literally will cut me off as I'm talking and just be like, I just want you to know that I think you are just so beautiful. And I'm like, okay.
Dude, that's weird, man.
Like,
I'm feeling uncomfortable.
I mean, literally, like, I would say 6 or 7 times in a period of 3 hours. Like, would cut me off and just...
Allie, by the way.
He even told me at one point, I really want to take a picture of you because my friends wouldn't believe that I'm with someone.
Are you kidding?
I literally felt like a celebrity with like a 16-year-old boy. Like, it was so uncomfortable.
What a weirdo.
So uncomfortable.
Just pose. Hang on, that's the shot. Don't move.
Yeah, seriously. Like, literally checking my drink to make sure.
Yeah, like, any residue in there.
Absolutely. So I go, one more time, and he goes, do you really want to talk about that right now? And I said, well, I want to know about your family. And he goes, well, my brother's gay, but I still love him. Like, very...
As if you shouldn't, like...
Right, well, just very, like, I don't know. I was like, okay, well, I'm sorry to hear that you guys don't get along. Like, we can tell me about your parents.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Literally just change the subject. And he was like, oh, you'll love my dad. My dad will love you.
Oh, so now you're meeting parents.
Right. I mean,
That escalated quickly.
So I literally it was just like, yeah, well, that's great. So,
Yeah, well, what do you say to that?
so, yeah. And then he said, so he goes, well, I'm going to go to the bathroom, and I was like, okay, cool, well, I'll go there, and we'll head out after that. So I go in the bathroom, and I'm in there for like 15 minutes. I'm texting all my girlfriends, like, what do I do?
me out of this.
How do I get
Yeah,
out of
seriously.
this? Like, I've never been in this situation before. And they're like, girl, one of them was like, well, just duke it out, it'll be fine. At least you'll get a good meal, whatever. Another girlfriend was like, do you need me to call in a fake emergency?
See, there you go. That's a friend.
So, it was just so bad. So I go back out and we start walking to the car, and I'm like, are you good to drive? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm fine. So we get in the car, and he literally sits down, turns it on, and it doesn't start.
What?
So he didn't turn it on.
Or we
getting
didn't
better
turn it
and
on.
better.
So I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, oh, it's cool, I'll drive. Get out of the car, start walking to mine, thinking, how do I get out of this? So he doesn't follow me. He's sitting in his car and looking around, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what could you possibly be doing right now? Well, he grabs something, and we start walking to my car, and he pulls out a thing of tobacco, and he's like, well, I dip. Is that I hope that's not a deal breaker.
Speaking of which.
Yeah, and for me, I was kind of like,
well, yeah.
Yeah, like, kind of is,
Did you say that?
I mean, I literally was like, I didn't respond. I was just like, okay, that's great. I mean, literally, if I need any more of an out, yeah, I just didn't respond.
Okay.
So I get into my car, and I remember sitting in my car, and I'm like, how do I get out of this? Well, then he doesn't get in the car. And so I get out of the car, and I walk over to him, and he's sitting there, and he's, putting it in his mouth, and I'm just like, all right, I'm out. Like, this, he's drunk, so I just told him, I said, you're really nice, but this isn't going anywhere, and I appreciate you taking me bowling. I had a great time, whatever. Yeah. He looks right at me and he goes, was it really that bad? And I go, yeah, it was.
Build upon this, my friend.
Literally, like, take this and learn. So I was like, can I get you an Uber? And he's like, no, I'll find my way home. Bolted, like, as fast as I could. So go to McDonald's because now I'm starving. So I go sit in the parking lot of McDonald's, call like 6 people. Nobody answers. I called like 4 of my girlfriends, 2 of my guy friends. None of them answered.
Time out. If you give up a steak dinner at Palm for McDonald's, this must have been awful.
Awful. I mean, literally, I would have had to be with him for another at least 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I could not be with him for another 2 minutes.
What might have happened?
So bad. So then I go to McDonald's. My mom answers. Talk to her for an hour and a half. Go to Broadway to meet up with some friends. Go into a bar. And, of course, I'm just so irritated at this point. This guy comes up to me and says, have been sent here on a dare. And I'm literally thinking, bro, I'm not in the mood.
I will end you.
I will literally cut you. Like, just don't talk to me. So he goes, well, where are you from? And I said, well, I live here now, but originally I'm from Indianapolis. And he goes, oh, straight face. Where's that?
Wow.
And I go, and this goes back to the intelligence thing, right? Like, literally can't even hold a conversation with this guy.
The state is like part of the city's name.
Exactly.
Like,
and I said, Indianapolis? And he goes, yeah. And I looked right at him, and I looked at his friend, and I go, well, it's in Minnesota. Like, trying to be funny, but also, like, maybe he'll realize that, and he goes, oh, that's cool. Is that, like, north, south? And I literally am like, yeah, Indianapolis is a great beach town. Like, you should check it out sometime. And he literally starts to ask me more questions, and I look right at him, I said, I gotta go. And this was, like, 10:30 on a Saturday night, and I'm like, all my friends are out having a great time.
I give up.
And here I am, like, I'm going home at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night and my friends were like, we can get you somebody, we'll find somebody for you tonight. And I was like, nope.
It's the last thing I need.
Literally, I just want to go home and hang out with my cats and go to bed.
See, that's what I love pets. They never let you down.
They don't. And so I went home and the boys loved on me and it was great.
Yeah.
So that's my horrible dating story.
I'm not even going to ask the 2 of us because there's no way we're going to be able to follow that with anything remotely. Unless do you have anything?
Nope.
Yeah. So you win that one, Allie.
Oh my goodness. So that's why I don't ever meet somebody. For me, I don't meet somebody right away. I want to talk to them, text, whatever, for a while. Okay. That way when I meet them in person, it's not like we have nothing to talk about. We have nothing. There's nothing been said. So that was my learning lesson, and it's a funny. I mean, in the moment I was horrified, but
in hindsight,
it funny. Makes for.
Yeah.
So now when I tell my girlfriends, they're like, "I'm so sorry I didn't answer," and I'm like, "Girl, I was."
Yeah, seriously. Thanks a lot for that, right?
Man, I mean, my mom answered, and she was wonderful. I mean, she talked me through it. Even my dad didn't answer. I mean, even my dad had plans.
Where are you when I need you?
So.
Before we wrap up, I'm gonna go over just to read these answers here but is there anything you guys want to add? Any fleeting thoughts or points you want to make before we close?
Nothing that I can think of.
Well, I want to ask you guys what do you guys think about dating now versus when our parents did it? I mean, it's
just I think it's
so different.
It's made it very hard to navigate the genuine from the not
I'll
genuine.
agree with that.
That's basically my summarized version of that.
I agree with that.
No, I never really had that experience of doing the old way because I
That's
kind of
true.
grew up in that,
Yeah.
that new age
true.
technology.
You're just
So-
a little baby.
Just a little
I know.
bit.
So yeah, just to remind, Johnny's 23. I'm 30.
Old.
Shut up. I'm 30. Recently 30.
Recently.
And Allie is 29. Almost.
Recently.
Almost 30.
Recently 29.
All right, so I asked Facebook, in your opinion, what is the normal length of time from meeting to relationship? Any steps in between? What qualities do you... Basically the same thing. What qualities do you value? For those with dating apps, what things cause you to swipe right or left? I'm just going to read a couple responses. Let's see. Kenny Champion Bald. Length of time. Time's irrelevant in my opinion. It's more of a feeling that determines that. Steps are to find out moral values, basically the character of the person. Qualities I value, again, morals and values. How much heart and mind you have and utilize. And I look for someone who is full of life and has a positive outlook. I also like someone who's a family person. Dating apps, I would say whatever your picture tells me about you. Picture's worth 1,000 words. Maybe not that much, but it still says quite a bit. Wilman Govin pasted the link to the Wedding Crashers Vince Vaughn monologue where he's talking about playing just the tip. Do I ask you this? It's really funny.
Oh my goodness.
Josh Jones, here are my steps for relationships. Step 1. No. That was it.
Nice.
Steven Ramirez, time matters very little if we get along perfectly. I can wait a year, as bad as that sounds. Qualities, she needs to have a sense of humor. Everybody knows me as a jokester, and I believe laughter is a cure for all negativity. Great sense of moralities is a plus. I'm going to skip a couple parts. Dating apps, don't use them. Don't have anything there, so... Thank you guys for your answers and everybody else who's been involved with it on social media. To wrap up, just like last episode, I'm going to read a poem that I wrote in regard to dating, and it's called Modern Dating. Hello again, my people. Tonight we talk of change. You all know what I speak of, that dreaded dating game. Gone those days of wonder wherein stomachs wings would flap. Those butterflies are gone now, their place a shallow app. Sigh, rather than depress you and speak the truth today. Instead, I'll joke about it and make light of things we say. So let me guess, dear ladies, if I stumble across your pics, the bio's not much different than the rest of all the chicks. You're, quote, not here for a hookup. You like whiskey and craft beer. Hate shirtless mirror selfies, and I bet you just moved here. Your heart is pure, still searching for a leader among men, but that jerk just sent a dog pic. Ugh, here we go again. This brings me to my next point. You women aren't to blame. We fellas say I'm different, but we often cheat the game. So let me take a shot here and venture but a guess, for all I know of others is what you say and stress. It sounds like most of our bios all follow common trends. We tell you that we're different, but nudes we'll gladly send. We aren't here for a hookup, just the same as you, but when it comes to meeting, the bar is our go-to. Oh, and did you get it? The picture? Wait, I'll send. Don't my gains look awesome? That mirror's my best friend. Anyway, I digress. It's cynical, I know. So much for staying whimsy. This all just bugs me so. Don't get me wrong, I get it. Just human all are we. I know that it's our nature and perfect none can be. Anyway, I'm ranting. Let's end it for tonight. Let's get back to the real world, this game of swiping right. But before I finish scribbling, a last thing I shall say. From deepest heart, I promise, real love will come one day. Perhaps from out of nowhere, the search it finally ends. The butterflies will find you. This I know, my friends.
Alright, well thank you all for tuning in this week on How the World Should Work. We'll be back next week to talk about institutions and their desperate need for reform. Thank you all again. Until next time.